Hey everybody, September 8th, 2025 here with your nightly watch list video. Before we hop into the names, let's just kind of quickly talk about what was going on in the market. I guess, we'll talk about this one first, and this is OCTO, and this is BMNR, the Tom Lee company, taking a position in Dan Ives' company, who something about World Coin or World Token. So it's just a big old kind of circle jerk of money going on with the CNBC fellas. Good for them. Absolutely insane move. And while this was happening, you can kind of see some of the FOMO, come out of Open Door today. And, that's just kind of what happens when you give monkeys a new banana. They kind of are attracted to the newest and shiniest object. And OCTO was definitely the flavor of the day today. Closed up a casual 3,000%. At one point, I think it was up like 5,000%, which is just, unheard of, really. I don't know the last time any of us have ever seen anything like that, but absolutely awesome to see. And mega caps kind of took a little bit of a breather today. Nothing wrong with it at all. A little bit of a breather for Apple, small little breather for Meta, small pretty much breather for everything, right? Google did pretty much nothing today. So these charts look perfectly fine. I'm not here to call tops on anything that's in a beautiful uptrend, which is what they are. And just one, down day does not make a trend. We will kind of see what happens from there. Tesla is the other one. I still own Tesla, still using the 200 simple moving average as my stop, but obviously, what was kind of hopeful for a little bit better of a performance, and this did not give it. So it just is what it is. I don't really know what else was super notable today. Really on the up or the downside, besides, something like ALAB. I thought ALAB was, already a nice looking chart, and then you kind of break out over that 197, 198 level, and then just up, huge 13% today. Hood with the S&P 500 inclusion, obviously, right back out to highs on a really big pickup in volume. AppLovin was another one that reacted really well to its inclusion into the S&P 500. So there are things that are acting really well, but again, it still continues to be a bit of a tricky market when you take into account a name like Reddit that was showing tons of strength that just essentially a fade from the word go today. So it's tough, but obviously it's not impossible. You just got to have your eyes on the right names at the right time, and again, they're not making things incredibly easy at the moment, because it feels, although there are a bunch of names going higher, right? It's like, even on something like Hood, they're kind of shaking people out on Friday, and then Monday, S&P 500 inclusion, and then gap up, and then ramp all day. They're really not making it easy to hold through some of this stuff. And then obviously NBIS, how could I forget, not mentioning this one? You get a huge contract with Microsoft, I think for like $17.5 billion, and then you get a massive gap up, all the way to 110, which is just bananas. When you kind of think about, obviously, the contract that they got is, larger than their market cap, which is great, and that then caused a little bit of FOMO and a little bit of a pickup in CoreWeave in after hours, a little bit of FOMO in an iron, some HUT, and even during the day, we were talking about this little pullback into the 10-day. I thought this actually looked pretty good, but of course I did not take it. That's just how it goes. And then huge ramp up in after hours. Iron, HUT, Cypher, Wolf, they all kind of had that little push in after hours. Really nice to see. And if an NBIS is going to continue, I will keep my eye closely on Iron as a potential higher low setup. And I will keep my eyes on this APLD, Wolf, HUT, Cypher, etc. Just to see if this theme's got some more legs, which I suspect it absolutely could. I don't know anything else that really stuck out to me today. Not a ton. Gold held in there pretty well. Ethereum kind of closed on the lows after opening up fairly decent. I don't think this looks bad. by any means. I don't think it looks amazing either, but it is above the ascending 50-day. It's effectively just digesting here after a really big move up. I don't think it's doing anything wrong, but just at the moment, it's not necessarily doing anything right either. So, we'll just kind of continue to take things one day at a time in the crypto space. And then with that, we can just kind of start to dive into a few of these names. Obviously, you guys know the suspects. Tesla's going to continue to stay on my watch. If we gap fill, that's actually would be my personal preference, right? Come back another $6 or $7. That would be a spot that I could potentially add. And if I add to my position, I will be using lows of the day on any of those adds. So that is just kind of something to keep in mind. If I'm going to go and buy a 620 setup, a little bit bigger of a pullback into the, a 5-day, effectively the gap fill, and then you start to curl from there, the 620 setup, I will look to keep my stop at the lows of the day. Shopify continues to act pretty well. I will also keep my eyes on this one. Don't really consider this a higher low setup just yet, but we'll keep my eyes on this thing, seeing how the market responds tomorrow. Alibaba getting picked up a little bit in after hours. I've been wanting to get positioned in this thing, but just really cannot. We talked about this going into Friday as a potential higher low setup, and I just didn't take this thing on Friday either. And obviously you're getting a bit of a gap up and then now another gap up. So not really something that I want to go chasing in a couple gap ups. But if you really zoom out on Alibaba, this thing's got a huge, multi-year base here. So that's nice to see. And ideally any checkbacks into daily moving averages should be viable in my opinion. I already own PDD and I would be looking to add to this thing if it continues to act well. If we're going to go ahead and take out today's highs, 126, I would be comfortable adding to my position, and I own it from 122.5. So, if we can start to clear that 126 level effectively as a higher low, I would be comfortable getting myself involved, and then ultimately, over 134, potentially for a continued stage 2 uptrend would be a spot for me to add. ARK is another one I think looks absolutely fantastic. Right, you've had a really nice trend off the April lows. You've done nothing wrong except go sideways for a month and a half. If we could start to clear this 76.70 level effectively, I would be interested in getting myself involved for a potentially brand new position on this thing. So that is kind of how I'm thinking about it. Get over today's highs. Problem with today, and I was talking about it in the room, is there just was not enough volume coming in. So it's like, okay, yeah, I want to add to it, but I always want to add to something that's going to push away from my average. And it just felt like the market was a bit choppy today. There's no real volume coming into ARK. And, it closed where it opened. So kind of thankful that I didn't take it at all, because at that point it just becomes a gamble. You don't know if it's going to gap down, and then you kind of get shaken out and you just take a paper cut loss for no reason. So please always make sure you are paying attention to volume and really the trend of the underlying stocks within the ETF. If those names aren't acting well, then you already kind of know that ARK is not necessarily doomed, but it's going to have a hard time going up on its own without those names in the ETF performing well. MU continues to look awesome. To me, this is just a beautiful base, series of higher lows, already shown you the ability to make a really clean linear move, just digesting beautifully. Any checkbacks on this thing as well, I think I would be looking for a spot to potentially buy it, into the rising 10-day, I think would be really interesting. Rubric has earnings tomorrow after the close. Any kind of a gap up on this thing for earnings, we start to clear that 103 level, I think that could be good. We've been seeing a little bit more evidence that that earnings gap ups have been working lately. Not a ton, but gap ups have kind of been sticking and trying to go higher, so that is positive. And you get a big base like this for an entirety of a quarter, and then you get a gap up. It could be that this thing has a nice quarter ahead, especially if the market is acting well. SoFi is another one that I have my eyes on. Really clean little bull flag. We'll see if this thing does want to clear Friday's highs. Today we kind of just stuck our landing. You pushed right up into that level and you just couldn't really break above. We will be watching that level going forward. Really just over $26 looks pretty good. Below 26, kind of leave it alone. But the ideal is when you buy it, you're going to be buying it properly, and then the market's going to be pushing at the time that you buy it, and ideally it gives you a nice push away from your average. Carvana, another one of these that is acting very well. I don't think there's anything wrong with Carvana. We'll see how this thing does when it can get over 377.50, which is Friday's highs. Today it got there, and again, it's stuffed a little bit, so you've got a really clear level to work with. Pretty much good above Friday's highs, bad below is the way that I look at it. TEM didn't do anything wrong today. I just still find this a little bit sloppy. I'd like to find a tighter area to get involved, ideally against an ascending moving average, but this is one to just kind of keep an eye on going forward. BX, very slow, definitely not a name for everybody, but really a whole lot tighter. Super nice move up, really nice consolidation. We talked about this one in the room today. We'll see if this thing wants to get going over 173.5. That is definitely the spot that I'll be watching, this BX, the Blackstone company, and we'll just see if this thing wants to get going. But really nice move up, really nice bull flag, and we'll see if this thing wants to go from there. And Uber is another one, really nice job reclaiming the 50-day today. I didn't buy it going through the 50-day, but we'll keep an eye on it, and then ultimately if this thing wants to push out to 97, 98 bucks, digest, give a tight little inside day, and then ramp from there. That would be fantastic. And like I mentioned before, keeping an eye on some of these data center names, data center related, whether it's Iron, Hut, Wolf, Cypher, APLD, they are going to be NBIS dependent, but definitely something to keep an eye on going forward. And it's good. Just don't be like a bobblehead. Don't have too many names on watch. There are still plenty of names out there that you can potentially own. DoorDash is another one, but I'm not really including this thing because it's just a touch too slow. For those of you guys that don't mind slow, I think it's got to take out Wednesday's highs. If it can do that, I think it looks pretty good. 254.10 would be a spot that I'll be watching going forward. But I tried this thing back here, and it was just a little bit too choppy for me, as it was kind of just grinding up, and it ended up shaking me out. I want to say I maybe bought this thing on, 528, and I got stopped out the very next day, and then it ended up going from there. So, we'll see. This thing is potentially set up to go higher, surfing the 50-day really nicely and holding it well. So we'll see how the market's acting. No real opinions from me here. I think, it still pays to be bullish. I still have my long in ARK. I still have some CCL. I have PDD. I have some Tesla. And we'll just kind of take it one position at a time and see if we can get ourselves resituated on the long side, for some really nice end of year potential trend. But if we continue to see some distribution, just maintain your stops. Make sure that you keep your stops tight. Don't oversize positions. Just make sure that the market has to pull you in. If the market cannot pull you in, then you don't need to be operating with bigger size, right? Everybody makes money in an easy market. If the market's not easy, then you shouldn't be sizing up positions. Simple as that. So on Friday, I took a half position in Bros. That stopped me out. I have a half position in Tesla. I still hold it, but I'm red in that one as well. And, I don't want to force myself into the market if the market's not being friendly. Yes, it's awesome to see an OCTO, or yes, it's awesome to see NBIS in after hours, or yes, it's awesome to see A-Lab breakout of what I thought was a pretty clean setup. But unless you're on those names right away, then obviously, they're difficult. You kind of feel like you're chasing a little bit, and the market has punished that recently, but in some instances it won't. So continue to build a good watch list. A-Lab was on our watch list, but if you don't buy it, then it's a pipe dream that you don't it. But absolutely do not chase price, right? The homework is to continue to build a nice watch list, and you put yourself in position to get lucky through building a good watch list. So it's nice that A-Lab was on the watch list. And that is trying to put yourself in position to get lucky, but ultimately you have to execute the trade. So, continue to keep your names on watch. set your alerts, and then if they trigger in a healthy market and the group is acting well, don't be afraid to size into them. And then if the market continues to be friendly, go for your next name and your next name and your next name, and use progressive exposure properly. So anyway, Tesla, Shopify, Baba, Uber, PDD, SE, ARC, MU, Rubrik, SoFi, Carvana. And then for solar names, obviously FSLR, NXT, Run, Sedge, although they acted a little bit funky today, but I still think they look fine on the daily. TEM, BX look fairly interesting going forward. So anyway, I will leave you guys with that, and I will see you guys all bright and early for pre-market prep, or I'll see you guys before the market open. Cheers.